Hello, welcome to Astrologer Climate Witness. Yes, I said it correctly this time instead of the climate first. I am doing this again just because it's an available time and it's very nice tonight. The weather has cooled, um, and I'm sitting out here enjoying some reading and finished my dinner, and I'm thinking to myself, I really need to do this video. I've written some of what I'm going to talk about, but you know, it's slow. What I really want to do is try to get across to people more about what astrology is, how it works. And I know there's plenty, if there's any astrologers that come here, you're going to be familiar with this. But it's fun to discuss anyway, correct? But those of you who are new, what I'd like to explain is this. This works for personal natal astrology, but it also works for mundane astrology. Astrology is about associations and archetypes. So we must remember that every time we talk about it. Astrologers get a habit of sounding like the planets are making us do things, and it's really only a convenience. And maybe some astrologers are better at using different language so it doesn't sound like that, but what I'd like to say is we get stuck on certain words, and I should try myself to use language that discusses or promotes more of the idea that astrology is about association. So what does that mean? Okay, so when you're talking about Aries, you are talking about anything in life that has to do with initiation and spark. Spark. Initiative or initiating fire. Okay? So like when you light a match, when you start a car, a gasoline car, maybe even an electric car, I guess. It's that spark of fire or heat that gets things moving. Okay? So, what else in the world is similar to that in everyday life? So, if you want to talk about mundane astrology, you're going to mention things like, um, let's say somebody wants to protest, but in their mind they haven't told anybody yet, but they've got this fire burning in them that they want to do something. They want to just do it. They're angry young men or angry young women, and they want to just do it. They want to go out and they want to protest and they want to raise hell. Okay, so there you go. That's kind of an Aries thing. Now, part of that might be, well, generally it's the left that kind of protest in those directions. I mean, has been the right too over time, but lately the right is out there too. But whatever, I was going to say one of the main causes for that initiatory spark of enthusiasm to protest is for a cause, and everybody always thinks of the left when they think of that, but it's the right that's been doing that too. People who want to keep everything the same, that urge to conserve on the people coming from the right now, right? They want to keep life the same way that it was, stable and familiar. Okay, but okay, get back to the people who are trying to move things forward, basically. All right, that's really the equivalent of Aries. You are trying to move things forward. You are a warrior for your cause. I don't want to say good because that's a relative term. There is a reality to this, but that is still a relative term. Okay, so um, now Aries. What else? Red. Okay, things that are red in the world, naturally red. Okay, so you got roses. Are they ruled by Aries? I don't know. The roses are about beauty, so roses in general would be Venus oriented, okay? But okay, what else? Anything that you think of in terms of initiatory energy, spark energy, that's Aries. Um, Coaching. Coaches, they are all about getting their team members up and at them to be competitive. They're pushing. Okay. So think of a coach. Or you could say a politician who's out there trying to motivate people to vote. Okay. Those are Aries type things. And it's all about that push to just do it in any way, shape, or form. In the physical world, other things besides initiatory fire, spark, I'm trying to think. Um, I'm not so sure about volcanoes. The initial eruption could be Aryan. Okay. What else? Um, I hear the birds chirping, and I was gonna say the early bird gets the worm, but sunrise, sunrise. That's a very Aryan thing because you know that's usually anything rising on the horizon, the ascendant. Okay, that's any time of day, whatever sign's rising on the horizon. But that's your first house, so that's you know symbolic of sunrise. It's your sunrise, the time you were born, right? Doesn't have to be dawn actually, but then again, like I said, sunrise, actual sunrise, dawn, that is Aries. Okay. Now, what else? Well, okay, so the sun rises in the east, so we're going to say the direction east is Aries. Okay. What else? Um, you could say warriors, okay, soldiers, they're all Aryan, okay, and competitors in sports are Aryan, um, and just any little thing that's going to move people forward, move a process forward. It's not sustained, okay. The Aries spark is not a sustained energy. It is an initiatory energy. Okay. And so, as people do that initiatory energy, they engage that fiery spirit. Okay. It could be competition, it could be identity. This is who I am, and don't tell me I'm somebody else. Okay. Or should be somebody else. I am who I am. That is Aries. Now, the next sign that would we talk about as far as association would be Taurus. What can we think of that would be Taurian? So you can talk about something that's very solid and stable. And when I say solid, I don't mean that kind of solid necessarily. What I'm saying is something that's kind of immovable. So yes, the ground that we walk on, okay? And then you could talk about a mountain, but that also kind of falls under Capricorn. So I'm going to leave that to the side a little bit. The ground we walk on, the soil that we grow food from, that's Taurian. And what else? Well, initially, when we moved from hunter-gatherers around 10,000 years ago or so, give or take a couple thousand years, we began to value land. So you could say over the centuries after that, we put a value on ownership of land. Now, is this a good thing or a bad thing? It's turned out bad. Initially, there weren't a lot of people in the world. It probably started to begin to cause issues among people locally. Yes. Because before that, everyone just moved along and had, roamed in their territory. And nobody said, this is my territory, I doubt. We don't know that for sure, but I'm pretty sure that everyone just roamed their lands and knew that everybody did. And they didn't say, hey, you can't come over here. That might have started to change over time, but eventually people settled. And that settling is a very Taurian thing. Let's stay put. Let's own this soil that we are sitting on, and we can grow our seeds, which, of course, again, started very, very minimalistic. It was a kind of probably an accident. The interesting thing is we found that everyone around the world at the time, of course, people around the world at the time, it kind of all seemed to happen around the same time, even though these people weren't connected. And that's the very synchronistic thing that's so interesting that historians have come up with. But that is also a very astrological event because it has to do with the synchronicity that humans shared that same timing all around the world to start to begin to settle down and do their planting. Okay. Again, it started very slowly, very minimally, and generation after generation after generation after generation slowly began to improve upon what had been done before. So when you're talking about this, you've got to remember that you're talking about something that took generation after generation to modify, to progress, to mature into an actual real agriculture. Subsistence still, but in the beginning it was hit and miss probably. They still did loads of hunting, I imagine. Now, it was experimental in a way, right? So that owning of land, the value that they began to put on that piece of land, began the whole idea of valuing something that was an object. Okay, they might have had something like that originally with the beads and the um, clothes, the cloth, the deer skins or the bear skins or whatever that they had. That might have been a kind of a thing, but from what I've understood, from what was related to historians, Native peoples, at least what we've learned about people in the Native Americans here, were very open to giving. They didn't really feel that they owned these things necessarily. Maybe they thought their tribe owned certain things. That could have been it, like their tents, etc. But it was mostly due to, a need for those things to be kept and to be valued so that they could help survival, right? But it didn't have to do with a disassociated valuing like gold. And people had gold. There was gold laying upon the ground in places, you know, millennia ago. They didn't have to mine for it. Eventually they did some, and slaves did that. But so um, here we're discussing value, ownership, and permanence, the land, right? But what else in the world is that? Now we have money, which is symbolic of value, which is Taurian. And, um, but inside of that, even deeper, what we must also realize is self esteem without those physical objects that symbolize value. We need to remember that the real value is to value yourself. What does that mean? That means that you if you're confronted with a situation that's going to put you a, uh, in a conundrum as to testing your values, are you going to allow that yourself to be put in that situation? We've all, especially when young, you go through times when you put yourself in a situation and you ended up doing things that invaded your own sense of integrity, your own sense of value. That is kind of how people learn not to do that because you can't, that's one of the things that can't be forced on people. And to an extent, you can lecture and you can teach, right? But there's still going to be different personalities that will have to learn through experience to own and appreciate. That's a very good word to symbolize Taurus. Appreciate their own body, their own health, their own mental state, and the whatever values that they have developed so far in life. Okay, I don't want to do that kind of thing, so I'm not going to engage in that activity because it's going to make me do things that I don't want to do, that I don't believe in doing. Okay, that's again, something we learn. It's not that easy when young, and many situations for people come about where they're focused on something else. Let's say their family life isn't that great, right? And they get involved in situations with people that they feel they can depend on, and get away from the family situation, but it turns out to be not so great in the long run, right? So life is about learning. Okay, just let's remember that. Life is about learning. And so, if, somebody were to discuss these kinds of things with people when young, that's the thing about astrology. When you're talking about the signs and the planets and the houses, it's a language, that's all. Each sign name, each planet name is a tool in a way to describe our experiences in life. Okay. So if you're talking to a young person and you use these terms and you describe what they mean, what you're doing is giving them a chance to step back in their life and observe. Okay. And they have a language to do that with. Okay. So this is the next sign, Gemini. Okay. Kind of in a way that we moved right into it. So Gemini um, is giving something a name. Yeah, the Bible talks about that. And, I'm not somebody who follows a conventional religion, but a human experience or human experiences are written in all those religious books. And some of that is very symbolic of what goes on in the human mind, human culture, and society. Okay, so some of those situations and uh, stories in the Bibles or any of those religious books is describing the human experience, and it's through written word. Okay, that's very Gemini. So then what you're doing too is, are you going to take those things in those books literally, which is a very Gemini thing in a way. Gemini is about logic, but it's not about interpretation, not necessarily. So what else besides those things in the world? So, we all know Gemini is about communication and thinking processes, cognitive thinking processes, the very basic things about learning to speak, learning to uh, see a face, a human face when you're a tiny baby and recognize that face. The way that the human face is laid out is imprinted in the human mind. And so, as you get older and you're learning to talk and you have this experience of your immediate environment, and you want to touch, you want to put things in your mouth, you want to feel things, you want to hear things, and you want to move your body, and this is all about learning. Okay, learning. And our elementary schools, secondary education actually, is all about learning and developing the mind, the concrete mind that and we learn how to write, we learn about math, we learn all of these things which are very Gemini skills. And then when you get out in the world, what else is Gemini? Well, driving your car to the store for bread and butter and milk, driving to your sister's house because your sister's a Gemini, or just your sister is, siblings are under Gemini, because when you were young, you, now not everybody, because some people were only children, okay, and that can show up in the chart, okay, but uh, you, if you had siblings, that was one way you learned, and you had an environment, an immediate environment where you had a lot of sources to learn from, older siblings, younger siblings, whichever, or both. And that was different than relating with your parents. Okay. So, what else in the mundane world? So, when you're talking about Gemini in the mundane world, I would say that any communication within your own nation, okay, that has to do with Gemini. So, um, talking, at uh, meetings that governors have, that mayors have, that, you know, uh, senators and House representatives, all those things are part of distributing information. Okay. Now we have that, like newspapers, part of the association with Gemini is a newspaper. Of course, now we have the internet. But the other axis of that is Sagittarius, which we will go into later and we'll expand on, yeah, Sagittarius. Well, Gemini is about the actual printed word, the actual reading of the word, the dissemination of the information. It's not about interpreting it necessarily, okay? Um, that's something that's Sagittarius. But the distribution to give people the information and the people reading it, that is the Gemini uh, association. And other things. So, what do we use to communicate with? We use our mouth and throat, but also our hands now, too, because of writing and because of typing. So, the hands and fingers are symbolized by Gemini. And if you want to correlate that to something in mundane astrology, I think the wires having to do with our own or old telephone lines, and now it would be I want to say the Wi-Fi um, and that sort of thing um, would be the Gemini part. There's a mix of Uranus in there, but it's partly Gemini, okay? Because it's the distributed, okay? Because the Gemini is about where Aries is the cardinal, which is the initiation, and Taurus is the stabilization. Gemini is the distribution of that that uh, establishment of the individual and or the establishment of a nation. Okay, you need a way to communicate. Even when they came up with the telegraph, okay, that was very Gemini. Okay, what a great thing that must have been, initially. Well, even the Pony Express, that was great. So when you're talking about Gemini, as far as mundane astrology, think of those things in regards to a nation's chart. Okay. Now, oh well, if you want to talk about, say, a politician, does the politician have any siblings or aunts and uncles that are, uh, prominent in their lives? Okay, and that sort of thing. And what is a way? Oh boy, here we go. What is a way that politician likes to communicate? So I think Obama was the first to really use social media. He was Gemini, or is a Gemini moon. But oh my gosh, did that social media use take off with the person who got into office in 2016, 17? The moon, the sun in Gemini. Oh my God, did he make use of social media? I mean, wow, that's just unbelievable. He made use of it, all right. What kind of use? I'm not going to discuss here. But so now, um, Cancer. So when you're talking about associations with Cancer, in the personal astrology, in the natal chart, you're talking about the concept of emotion and that sense of, well, the moon is the function of emotion, where Cancer is the general field or energy field, that the reality that there is emotion. that there's a connective uh, energy among humans where they need to form a group, a tribe. Okay, so Cancer's about the tribe and the cohesiveness of the tribes, not individuals anymore. It's a cohesive tribe, and we can see where not just the nuclear family, that's the nuclear family, and well, not just the nuclear family, it's the tribe. So that was they're very enmeshed. I mean, how do we want to say this? Not, it wouldn't always be clinically negatively enmeshed, but that's what they are. They're close. They know each other inside and out. They give each other emotional support. And in a person's personal life, the Cancer situation can become negative and too dependent, in too dependent, too clingy. Too, when you talk about enmeshed, it means there's no boundaries, and people are invading other people's emotional states way too much and causing situations that don't need to be. But the positive of Cancer is that group that is established for emotional support. So then, in regards to mundane astrology, you're talking about within a nation. It's hard to say this because the United States is a Cancer nation, or was. I don't know. Do we have a new chart yet? I mean, do we? I don't know. But is Cancer the whole nation for us, the United States, or is it the fact that we have tribes within the nation? Okay, maybe that's always been, even though we're united, those states, the United States are the states, the tribes, and we ended up trying to unite them, and we kind of did for a long time. Sorry. And but now the Cancer energy and another way of it being very negative could end up being factions. Okay, that's not a good thing. So you have a tribe here, tribe there, tribe over here. Even within the upper echelons of, material society, you've got different factions. And maybe Cancer could be representative of that in a nation. Okay, and people are very protective of those in their faction or in their tribe. Tribe itself doesn't have to be a negative term, but faction can be. Okay, so there's that with Cancer. So keep your understanding or your mind open in that regard, because in the United States now, we have multiple factions. You don't have just two sides, left and right. No, you have different factions. You have various factions on the right, and you have various factions on the left. It's a matter of degree sometimes as to who or how much one faction leans in a direction than the other, and some factions don't even fit on either side. So, now, Leo. So, in a personal chart, Leo rules uh, the energy of establishing the individual, okay? And an individual will. So, coming from the Cancer swamp of group orientation, the Leo says, "Wait, I'm my own person here, man. I'm not, getting stuck always hanging around with you guys. I got to go do this and I got to do my will, right?" So they pull away from the group and they establish themselves as their own individual, and they become proud, separate from the group as to who they are. Okay, this is my will and this is what I've created. They go somewhere else and they create something else, whether it's a child or whether it's a rock painting on a wall, or a, even a tool, that they discovered and made into something, something, a piece of earth of some sort, sticks and rocks or whatever, and they made something, created something. Um, or the way they dress themselves, anything along those lines. Now, that leaves them separated from the group to a degree. How do you associate that with, or what would be the associations in a nation? Well, you've got leaders, okay? Same with the natal chart, but within a nation, you've got leaders that stand out, and they say, they're not afraid to say, follow me. I know that I can use my will to help you get what you need and what you want. Okay, so here we have leaders that do this, and they're very proud and do not have any qualms about standing up and professing their will to do what the people want. But they're usually very brave, but they also like that, you know, people are following them and they're proud. And so when people follow, it gives them even more to keep going and to use their will to get what is the people want. But then sometimes it takes a turn, and that pride ends up putting them in a position where they get what they want themselves. So that's the negative. So too much pride and too much vanity. I'm the great one. And so these leaders don't help in the long run because their motivation is for them, their own will, what they want, and not for the people. The Leo energy has to keep in mind that yes, they're an individual, but so is everyone else. And if they allow that pride of individualism to carry them away from, I don't want to use this word yet because that's for Virgo, but they use it to if they don't use it for the love of the followers, okay, then they're gonna lead everybody astray, including themselves. And remember, Leo rules the heart. So whatever they're doing for people, somebody in a nation, if their heart isn't into it because they feel warmth and and love for the people in their nation, then their vanity takes over, and it's all about them. Okay. So now Virgo energy has to do with in a natal chart. It's about being uh, okay. Yes, I'm an individual, which is great, but what do I have to stand on with that? I'm just out here and showing off, and look at me, and then but what am I doing for people? They're over there working and doing stuff, and I'm over here pruning my feathers. Uh-oh, I think I better do some work, right? So the Virgo says, I need to be useful and I need to be competent at what I'm doing. I can't just stand up here on my pride and just sit on a throne and expect people to like me. I have to do something that's helpful and of service. So my tribe will benefit. And now, of course, now we get to the nation. So the Virgo part is labor, skills within a nation, and leaders who serve, who really do serve, who have that humility to bend enough toward what they know is best for the nation as a whole, for their people, and using their skill to be able to establish um, a pattern of results, okay? So that they can see, like if they're trying to get a bill passed, they have to do the work to come up with the bill and word it correctly, and it has to be applicable to reality. Okay, it has to be real. Um, it can't be vague, and the wording has to be just right so that it's not misinterpreted. Okay, this is all Virgo stuff, right? And so then they try to get this passed, and it takes work. They have to go there every time, and then they have to convince everyone and explain the analysis of what they want to accomplish, and then they have to show up to vote. They can't just be out golfing when everybody's voting on their bill that they try to pass, right? So, um, the Virgo part, like I said, labor in a nation, unions, everything having to do with developing skills within the nation, creating jobs, okay, and also the public health service in a nation. That's Virgo, okay. So the public health service is all about what is best for everyone in the nation as far as taking care of not allowing diseases to spread so that the health of the nation stays so people can still go to work, or as in COVID we had to shut everything down so that because if we had not done that, if we had not shut down when we did, people would have been going to work. And eventually, with everybody getting very, very sick and some dying, then people wouldn't want to go to work. They'd be too afraid to go to work. I'm going to go to work, I'm going to get sick. I'm not going to work. What would have happened to the workforce then? And how much longer would the virus, the pandemic have lasted if we never did anything and just let everybody go about their business? Oh my God. Really? Seriously? I just can't believe people don't get that. And of course, if things were handled correctly from the right beginning of the whole thing, it might not even have gotten that bad in the first place. We might not even have had to shut down. But public health, that's under Virgo Association as far as a nation goes. And all the skills with all the different jobs and training programs, okay, that's under, and the licensing for certifications for different uh, uh, crafts and different trades, okay? That's all under Virgo, okay? So I think you get the gist. Now we're gonna move to Libra, and Libra, okay, you have the justice system, okay? You have the balancing of justice, and she has the blind on because she's looking at everyone equally. A rich person doesn't get special behavior, a special treatment, and a poor person doesn't always get, oh, well, they were really poor, so we have to let them off the hook because they didn't mean it. But they were destitute or whatever. You got to have some mercy. That is written in that. You got to have some mercy. Some. Okay. But it has to be a balance. All of this has to be a balance. And if we had the perfect society, there wouldn't be poor people that were desperate, right? So you've got that, Libra. In the personal chart, Libra rules that sense in oneself where they have to establish an equilibrium. Not everybody has Libra strong in their chart, but anybody needs to constantly evaluate, am I getting a little bipolar here or what? So maybe I ought to bring things back, mediate myself, mediate my behavior. Well, that's also within a nation. So you have the justice system, but then you have also diplomats. I know everybody makes fun of a diplomat, but they shouldn't, because look what just happened with getting back the prisoners. That all that diplomacy, that's all under Libra. That's work. And the concept of conflict resolution, you can get a degree in that. Oh my God, if I'd have known that when I was 20, holy crap. But I probably wasn't mature enough at the time. I got different degrees, but conflict resolution, I think that's an amazing thing. I've looked up a couple of times some books on it, and I think I'm going to try to get them. But we're going to need that. I mean, if civilization, not if, when civilization crumbles, you can't just let everybody out there to like handle things between themselves. I mean, some people can do that, and some people can't. There's always going to be somebody trying to dominate, somebody who's a little bit off, who's going to do really awful things. So within your local area, it's really good if you can find those people who have very good diplomatic skills and who can mediate situations, and they understand conflict resolution. It's hard, you know. There's so many times when both sides just don't want to. They don't want to. Look at the Middle East, right? They don't want things to be resolved. There's too much anger and hatred and revenge. You know, our species has become so down in a dark pit.